Tuesday, March 15th, 2024. The Sacramento Public Library greeted visitors with silence and the smell of old books. Emily Rogers was putting returned books on the shelves when she heard the familiar sound of the front door opening. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw an unfamiliar man, tall, dark-haired, and dressed in a neat gray suit that clearly stood out among the library's usual patrons. "Excuse me, could you help me find the business section?" he asked as he approached the information desk. His voice was pleasant and confident, with a slight accent that Emily couldn't quite place. "Sure, it's on the second floor, section B300, she replied, putting the books back. "Looking for anything in particular?" "Books on insurance law and risk management. I recently moved here and started working at Sacramento Insurance. Homer Carter," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Emily Rogers, librarian," she smiled, shaking his hand. The handshake was firm but not too strong, his skin warm and dry. Over the next few days, Homer became a frequent visitor to the library. Each time, he found a reason to approach Emily, to ask for advice about a book, to clarify the library's hours, or just to chat about the weather. Emily noticed that he was always impeccably dressed, polite, and attentive. Unlike many men, he really listened when she spoke, asked questions about her work, and was interested in her opinion about books. On Friday, March 24th, as she was gathering her things after work, Emily found a small note on her desk. "Emily, if you don't mind, I'd like to invite you for coffee tomorrow afternoon. No need to reply right away. Sincerely, Homer. P.S. Your book recommendations have been excellent." Emily's heart beat a little faster. After breaking up with Tom in January, she hadn't thought about dating. But there was something about Homer that attracted her. Perhaps his quiet confidence or the way he treated her not as a girl behind the counter, but as an interesting person. That evening, Emily sat in the kitchen with her father, Michael. He was cooking his signature dish, macaroni and meat sauce, a recipe his late wife had taught him. "Dad, a man asked me out for coffee," Emily said, twisting the note in her hands. Michael raised an eyebrow without looking up from the stove. "What do you think of him?" "He seems nice. He's new in town and works for an insurance company. He's polite and educated." "Are you ready for a new relationship?" her father asked, finally turning to his daughter. His face showed concern mixed with cautious optimism. Emily thought for a moment. "I don't know, but it's just coffee." The next day, Homer was waiting for her at a table by the window at the Old Mill Cafe. He stood up when he saw her and helped her take off her jacket. His gentlemanly manners were rare among her peers in Sacramento. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," he said when they were seated. "I have to admit, moving to a new city can be lonely." "Where did you move from?" Emily asked, studying his face. He was really attractive. Well-defined features, hazel eyes that looked straight at the person he was talking to. "Denver. My company offered me a promotion here. Sacramento seemed like the perfect place to start a new life. Not too big, not too small." The conversation flowed easily. Homer talked about his job without going into boring details and asked Emily about the city, her hobbies, and her family. He didn't interrupt or try to impress her with loud statements. When Emily told him about her mother, who had died of cancer 5 years ago, he simply nodded and said, "That must have been very difficult." "Do you live alone?" he asked. "Yes, in my grandmother's house on Maple Street. My father wanted me to sell it after she died, but I couldn't. Too many memories." "I understand. A house can be an anchor that ties us to important people." After the cafe, they strolled through Sacramento's Central Park. Homer didn't try to take her hand or show any physical affection, another plus in her book. He just walked beside her, commenting on the architecture of the old houses and listening to her stories about local history. "Emily, I really enjoyed spending time with you," he said as he walked her to her car. "I hope we can see each other again." On Sunday, Emily met Jessica at their favorite spot, a small bakery on Main Street. Her friend worked as a nurse at the local hospital and was always a source of town news and common sense. "Tell me everything," Jess demanded as soon as they sat down at a table. Emily told her about her encounter with Homer. Jessica listened intently, nodding from time to time. "It sounds too good to be true," she concluded, with her characteristic skepticism. "When a man seems perfect, something's usually wrong." Jess, not all men are like your ex. Emily laughed. Maybe, but be careful. Get to know him better before you get too attached. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of new emotions for Emily. Homer called every evening at 7 sharp, was never late for a date, and always looked impeccable. He took her to the only decent restaurant in town, to a local church choir concert, and to the farmer's market on Saturday morning. With each date, Emily became more convinced that Homer was the man she had been looking for without even knowing it. He was an attentive listener and remembered little things she mentioned in conversation. When she complained of a headache, he showed up with flowers and an offer to stay home and watch a movie. When her father's car broke down, Homer immediately offered to drive him to work. "This Homer of yours seems like a good guy," Michael admitted over dinner. "A polite young man, and clearly interested in you." Emily smiled. Her father's approval meant a lot. Michael Rogers was a cautious man who didn't give compliments lightly. By the end of April, the relationship had moved to a new level. Homer asked her to be his official girlfriend during a romantic dinner at his apartment. The apartment was immaculately clean and tastefully furnished, but it didn't feel cold or impersonal. The bookshelves were lined with classic works they had discussed, and the kitchen was decorated with landscape photos. Nothing personal, but nothing suspicious either. "Emily, these weeks have been the best since I moved here," he said, taking her hand across the table. "I'd like us to get closer." Emily felt warmth spreading through her chest. "I want that too." The first kiss was tender, cautious. Homer didn't rush things or push for more. Even as the passion between them grew, he always asked for permission and made sure she was comfortable. In early May, Emily officially introduced Homer to her circle of friends. A party at Jessica and her husband Mark's house was the perfect opportunity. Homer was charming but not intrusive, asked the right questions, laughed at the right moments, and helped the hostess in the kitchen. "I like him," Jessica whispered to Emily when they were alone. "I was wrong about my bad feeling. He seems like a really nice guy." Mid-May brought typical spring weather to Sacramento, warm days and cool evenings. Emily was walking home from work when she noticed Homer's familiar car parked outside her house. It was unexpected. They hadn't planned to meet, and Homer always gave her advance notice of his visits. He was sitting on the porch with a bouquet of tulips and a box from her favorite bakery. "Surprise," he smiled, standing up to greet her. "I wanted to cheer up my girlfriend after a hard day at work." "How did you know I had a hard day?" Emily asked, accepting the flowers. It had indeed been a difficult day. Problems with the library's computer system, a difficult visitor, a canceled meeting. "From the sound of your voice last night, I've learned to understand your tone," Homer replied, kissing her on the cheek. "Besides, I drove past the library around noon and saw that it was very crowded. I thought you might be having a hard time." Emily felt warm from his thoughtfulness, but somewhere deep down, a strange thought flashed through her mind. Homer worked in another part of town, so why would he drive past the library? But she quickly dismissed the doubt. Maybe he had business downtown. At home, Homer behaved as usual. He helped her take off her jacket, made tea, and asked about her day. But Emily noticed that he was looking with unusual interest at her mail, which was lying on the table in the hall. "Bills?" he asked casually, leafing through the envelopes. "Mostly utilities, insurance," Emily replied from the kitchen. "Homer, could you leave my mail alone?" "Of course, sorry," he replied quickly. "I just wanted to help you sort it out. See how much you've accumulated." In the days that followed, Homer's attention became even more intense. He called not only in the evening, but also during her lunch break, asking what she had eaten, who she had talked to, and how the first half of her day had gone. Every day he sent text messages. "Good morning, beautiful. How's work? I miss you. What's for dinner?" At first, Emily was flattered. No man had ever shown her such constant attention, but gradually the number of messages grew. If she didn't respond within an hour, another one would arrive. "Is everything okay? Why aren't you answering?" One evening, while they were dining at the Golden Valley, the only decent restaurant in Sacramento, Emily noticed that Homer was constantly watching the waitress. "She's too friendly," he remarked when she brought their order with her usual professional smile. "What do you mean?" "I saw the way she looked at me. Some women don't respect other people's relationships. Emily frowned. The waitress had been completely professional. She hadn't noticed anything inappropriate. Homer, she's just doing her job. You're very trusting, Emily. It's one of your wonderful qualities, but sometimes people can take advantage of it. After dinner, as they walked to the car, Homer took her hand more tightly than usual. I just don't want to see anyone else around you. You're too special to let anyone else take your attention away from you. At the end of May, Jessica suggested a girls' night out. Just the two of them, wine, movies, and talking until morning, like in the old days. Emily loved the idea. She had hardly seen her friend alone in the last few weeks. When she told Homer about her plans, his face darkened. On Saturday? But we were going to Davis to check out the farmer's market. Did you forget? Emily was confused. She didn't remember them making any plans. Homer, we can go on Sunday. I haven't seen Jess in a long time. Emily, I think you're spending too much time with her, he said gently, but there was a hint of disapproval in his voice. Jessica always turns you against men. Remember how she treated me at first? She just cares about me. I care about you too, more than anyone else. Shouldn't we spend the weekend together? We're a couple. Emily felt guilty. Homer was right. As a couple, they should spend time together. But at the same time, her friendship with Jessica was an important part of her life. Okay, but then I'm definitely seeing her next Saturday, she conceded. Homer smiled and kissed her. Of course, sweetheart. I don't want to restrict you. I just want us to be closer. In early June, Emily noticed that Homer was showing up in unexpected places. When she went to lunch at a cafe near the library, he happened to be nearby. When she went grocery shopping at the supermarket, he accidentally ran into her in the same aisle. What a coincidence, he said every time. But Emily began to think that there were too many coincidences. One evening, she asked him about it directly. Homer, I find it strange that we run into each other so often in town. He laughed and hugged her. Sacramento is a small town, dear. Besides, we're starting to think alike, choosing the same places. It's a sign of true closeness. His explanation sounded reasonable, but something inside Emily continued to bother her. The incident with the phone was the culmination. Emily left it on the kitchen table while she took a shower. When she came out of the bathroom, she found Homer with her phone in his hands. What are you doing? She asked sharply. You had a message. Your phone was beeping. I thought it might be something important, he replied calmly, handing her the device. Homer, that's my personal phone. You shouldn't touch it without permission. Emily, I didn't read your messages. I just wanted to help. There shouldn't be any secrets between us, right? She checked her phone. Sure enough, there was a message from her bank about her account balance. Nothing personal, but the fact that he had taken her phone without permission bothered her. Next time, just tell me you got a message, okay? Sure, he agreed, but there was something in his eyes that Emily couldn't quite place. Annoyance, resentment. Despite these oddities, Emily continued to consider herself happy. Homer was an attentive partner, always ready to help, always interested in her affairs. He cooked dinner for her when she was tired, bought her favorite flowers, planned romantic evenings. In mid-June, he offered her the keys to his apartment. I want you to feel at home in my home, he said, and I'd like to have a key to your place. We should be able to trust each other completely. Emily hesitated. The relationship was developing quickly, perhaps too quickly, but she didn't want to seem distrustful or create problems in the relationship. Okay, she agreed, handing him the spare key to her grandmother's house. That same evening, Jessica called her late, after Homer had already gone home. I need to talk to you. Mark told me something strange. What was it? His coworker works at the same insurance company as Homer. He says they don't really know Homer there. Apparently, he works remotely most of the time and rarely comes into the office. Emily frowned. What's strange about that? If he works remotely, why is he always so busy? And how can he happen to be all over town during work hours? Jess, maybe he has a flexible schedule. A lot of companies work like that these days. Maybe, but I find it strange that he never talks about his job. Have you ever met any of his coworkers? Emily realized that she had never actually met any of Homer's coworkers. He always spoke in generalities about his job, never mentioning names or telling funny stories from the office. Emily, I don't want to ruin your happiness. Just be careful. Something about that guy makes me uneasy. After talking to Jessica, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, analyzing Homer's behavior over the past few weeks. The constant calls and messages, the chance encounters around town, his interest in her mail and phone, his attempts to limit her contact with her friend. But then she remembered his tenderness, his care, the way he looked at her as if she were the most important person in the world. Maybe he just loved her very much. Maybe she was reading too much into the little things. The next day, Homer showed up at the library with lunch for her. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, placing the container of food on her desk. "Thanks, but I was planning on having lunch with a colleague." "Who?" he asked quickly. "Martha, the senior librarian." "Cancel it. We can have lunch together. Wouldn't that be better?" There was no aggression in his voice, but something in his tone made Emily feel uncomfortable. It sounded more like a demand than a request. "Homer, I can't keep canceling plans. People will think I'm unreliable." His face darkened for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "Of course, you're right. I'm sorry. I just wanted to spend some time with you." But as he walked away, Emily noticed that he turned around and stared at the library through the glass door for a long time. The end of June brought stifling heat to Sacramento. Emily sat in the air-conditioned library, trying to focus on cataloging new arrivals, when her phone vibrated again. It was the 7th message from Homer that morning. "Hey, beautiful. What are you doing? I miss you." She sighed, putting her phone in her desk drawer. Over the past 2 weeks, the intensity of his messages had reached a new level. Every 30 to 40 minutes, something new would arrive, a question about her day, a photo of his breakfast, a link to an article that reminded him of her. If she didn't respond quickly, a call would follow. "Emily, you look tired," Martha, the senior librarian, remarked as she approached her desk. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, it's just hot," Emily lied. The truth was more complicated. She was indeed tired, but not from the weather. Homer's constant attention was becoming exhausting. During her lunch break, Emily decided to take a walk in the park to clear her head. She hadn't made it to the bench when she saw a familiar figure walking toward her. "Homer, what are you doing here?" "I was driving by and saw you," he smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "I thought I'd keep you company. You only have half an hour for lunch." "How do you know how much time I have for lunch?" "You told me," he replied quickly. "Remember? Last week." Emily didn't remember discussing her work schedule in such detail with him, but Homer had already taken her by the arm and was leading her toward the cafe. "Homer, I just wanted to walk alone. I need some time to think." His grip on her arm tightened. "Think about what? About us?" "No, just about work, about life. Sometimes I need to be alone." "Emily, if there's a problem between us, we need to talk about it. I don't want you thinking about something important without me." There was a note in his voice that made Emily feel uncomfortable. Not just concern, but something more insistent, almost threatening. "There's no problem. I just want to be alone for half an hour." "Okay," he said after a pause, but he didn't let go of her hand. "Then I'll wait for you here. I'll walk you back to work." "Homer, you don't have to." "I want to. There have been a lot of attacks on women in the city lately. I read it in the news." Emily frowned. She hadn't heard of any attacks in Sacramento. The city was relatively safe, especially in the downtown area. "Where did you read that?" "On the internet. Maybe the local news doesn't cover all the cases, but I don't want to risk your safety." That evening, Emily called Jessica and asked to meet up. They agreed to meet at a small bar on the outskirts of town, far away from places where they might run into Homer. "He showed up at the park where I was having lunch," Emily said, sipping her wine. "He said he was just passing by, but his office is on the other side of town." Jessica frowned. I don't like this. Mark did some more digging about him at work." "And?" "His co-workers are saying strange things. Homer does work remotely most of the time, but when he's in the office, he acts unusual. He asks a lot of questions about his co-workers' personal lives, especially the women." One of the security guards noticed that he sometimes stays after work and walks around the building for no apparent reason. Emily felt a chill in her stomach. Maybe he's just an introvert trying to fit in. Maybe not. Emily, I have a bad feeling about this guy. He's watching you. Jess, you're exaggerating. Then check it out. Don't tell him where you're going after work tomorrow. See if he shows up by chance. The next day, Emily decided to stop by the pharmacy to pick up some medicine for her father without mentioning it to Homer. She was standing in line when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Emily? What a coincidence. She turned around, feeling her heart sink. Homer was standing there with a basket containing toothpaste and vitamins. Homer, hi, what are you doing here? Just needed to pick something up. How about you? Medicine for my dad. Is he sick? Homer asked quickly, and Emily thought she detected a note of satisfaction in his voice. Or was she imagining things? No, just his usual blood pressure medication. In the car on the way home, Emily analyzed the situation. Was it a coincidence? There were only 2 large pharmacies in Sacramento, so maybe Homer really did happen to be there by chance. But her doubts grew. Another surprise awaited her at home. On the kitchen table was a bouquet of roses and a note. To the most beautiful girl in the world. See you tonight, Homer. Emily glanced at her watch. It was 6:30 p.m. Homer was supposed to arrive at 8. That meant he had come into the house while she was out, using the key she had given him. When Homer showed up at the appointed time, Emily asked him about the flowers. I wanted to do something nice for you, he smiled. Did you like them? Homer, next time, let me know if you're going to come into the house. I don't mind, but it's my house. His face darkened. Emily, you gave me the keys. I thought that meant I could feel at home here. You can, but a warning is a matter of courtesy. Fine, he agreed, but his tone was cold. I'll ask permission next time. In July, the situation worsened. Homer began to express his dissatisfaction every time Emily planned to meet with friends or her father. Going to see your father again? He asked when she told him about her plans for Saturday dinner with Michael. Homer, he's my father. I've been spending time with him every Saturday for years. But now you have me. Shouldn't we spend our weekends together? We spend a lot of time together, but I have other important people in my life. More important than me? The question stumped Emily. It contained a veiled threat, a demand that she choose between him and the rest. Homer, it's not a competition. I can love you and still have a relationship with my family and friends. Sure, he agreed, but his face showed that he didn't believe it. That evening, Michael noticed that Emily looked troubled. Daughter, is something wrong? Emily hesitated, not knowing how to explain her feelings without sounding paranoid. Dad, do you think Homer is being too attentive? Michael put down his fork. What do you mean? He's always calling, texting. He shows up where I don't expect him to be. He doesn't like me hanging out with my friends. Her father's face grew serious. Emily, do you feel safe with him? I mean, he's never hurt me. He's not aggressive. He's just pushy. Pushiness can be a sign of more serious problems. If you feel uncomfortable, trust your instincts. The following week, an incident occurred that finally alarmed Emily. She was working late at the library, preparing a report for the city council. Around 9 o'clock, as she was locking up, she saw Homer's car parked across the street. He was sitting in the driver's seat, not getting out, just watching. Emily walked over to the car. Homer? What are you doing here? He looked surprised, as if he hadn't expected her to notice him. Emily! I was driving by and saw the light on in the library. I thought you might still be working. You've been sitting here for at least half an hour. I saw your car from the window. Half an hour? He laughed, but it sounded forced. No, I just got here. It must have been a similar car. Emily knew that wasn't true. There were only a few cars in Sacramento with the same make and color as Homer's. At home, she found her laptop open. Emily always closed it after using it, a habit she had developed over years of working with computers at the library. Homer, did you use my laptop? Just a little. My battery was dead and I needed to check my email. You don't mind, do you? Next time, ask permission. Sure, he agreed, but there was a flash of irritation in his eyes. Later that evening, after Homer had gone home, Emily checked the browser history. Someone had been searching for information about her on social media, looking at her Facebook and Instagram profiles, which were set to private. What's more, someone had been searching for information about Jessica, her address, and her place of work. A chill ran down Emily's spine. This was definitely not an innocent search. The next day, she met Jessica at a cafe far from the city center. "Jess, he was spying on me through my laptop. He was looking for information about you." Jessica's face turned pale. "Emily, this isn't just obsession anymore. This is stalking. But he hasn't hurt anyone. So far. You need to end this relationship. Now, before it gets worse." "But how? He doesn't take no for an answer. When I tell him I want to be alone, he finds a way to show up. Then do it publicly, with witnesses, and tell your father." That night, Emily lay awake, thinking about the situation. Homer, who had seemed like the perfect man, had turned into a source of constant stress. His love had become like a cage, slowly closing in on her. In the morning, she woke up to the sound of a key in the front door lock. Glancing at the clock, she saw that it was 6:30 a.m. Emily threw on a robe and went out into the hallway. Homer was standing at the door with coffee and donuts. "Good morning, beautiful. I thought you might be hungry." "Homer, it's 6:30 in the morning. What are you doing here?" "I wanted to spend the morning with you before work. Isn't that romantic?" Emily realized she couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. Homer's behavior had crossed all reasonable boundaries. "Homer, we need to talk." Something in her tone made him tense up. The smile disappeared from his face. "About what?" "About our relationship. About how much time we spend together. I need more space." The silence stretched on for several long seconds. Homer put the coffee on the table, his movements slow and controlled. "Space from me?" he asked quietly. "Not from you. Just time for myself, for my friends, for my family." "Someone is turning you against me. It's Jessica, isn't it?" "No one is turning me against you. This is my own decision." Homer took a step closer to her. An expression Emily had never seen before appeared in his eyes. Cold, calculating. "Emily, you belong to me. I won't let anyone destroy what we have." "Belong? Homer, I'm not a thing. I don't belong to anyone." "You will," he repeated, his voice hardening. "We were made for each other, and I won't let you forget that." Emily felt the first real fear of her life. The man standing in front of her was not the charming man she had met in the library. He was someone else, someone dangerous. August 16th, 2024, 6:45 a.m., 247 Maple Street, Sacramento, California. Neighbors later told detectives that they heard muffled noises around 6:30 a.m., something like furniture falling, then silence. Mrs. Henderson, who lived across the street, noticed that the lights in Emily Rogers' house were out earlier than usual, but didn't think much of it. Emily was lying on the living room floor at the foot of the stairs, leading to the second floor. Her body was twisted at an unnatural angle. Her long brown hair was tousled and partially covering her face. She was wearing the light blue pajamas she had put on the night before. Her right arm was stretched out toward the phone that had fallen next to the sofa, as if she had been trying to reach it in her final moments. The front door was locked from the inside. The living room windows were open. Emily always slept with her windows open, even on hot August nights. There were 2 cups of coffee on the kitchen table, one almost full, the other empty. An open packet of cookies lay nearby. There were few signs of a struggle, but there were some. The coffee table had been moved. The lamp was on the floor, and the lampshade was cracked. There were red marks on Emily's right wrist, looking like they were from someone grabbing her really hard. At 8:30 in the morning, a blue Ford F-150 pulled up to the house. Michael Rogers was there to pick up his daughter for work like usual. Her car had been in the shop for 3 days. He parked in the driveway and headed for the front door, carrying a thermos of coffee and a paper bag with breakfast from a roadside diner. Michael knocked on the door. Silence. He knocked again, louder. "Emily? Honey, are you ready?" No answer. Michael took out the spare key Emily had given him a year ago, just in case, and opened the door. "Emily, I'm coming in." The thermos and bag of food fell from his hands when he saw his daughter's body. Coffee spilled across the hallway floor, mixing with the morning light streaming through the windows. Michael's scream was heard by neighbors within a radius of 3 houses. Mrs. Henderson later told the police that the sound would haunt her for the rest of her life, the scream of a father who had lost his child. The call came in to the emergency response service at 8:34 a.m. 911, what is the emergency? My daughter is dead. Oh my God, my little girl is dead. Michael Rogers' voice was shaking, and he struggled to form words. Sir, please give me your address. 247 Maple Street, please hurry. We're sending a team to you. Don't touch anything and stay on the line. The first patrol car arrived 7 minutes later. Officers Daniel Clark and Maria Sanchez found Michael Rogers sitting on the porch, his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. Sir, we're here to help, Officer Sanchez said, crouching down next to the man. Tell us what happened. I came to pick her up for work. She's always ready by 8:30. The door was locked. I used the key. Officer Clark cautiously entered the house, his hand on his holster. His professional eye immediately noticed the details: the position of the body, the lack of obvious signs of forced entry, 2 cups on the table. Dispatcher, we need a crime scene team and a coroner. We have a suspicious death at 247 Maple Street. By 9:15 a.m., the house was cordoned off with yellow tape. Curious neighbors gathered at a safe distance, whispering about what was happening. Michael was taken to a patrol car, where he gave his initial statement to Officer Sanchez. When was the last time you saw your daughter alive? Last night, around 7. I stopped by to check on her. Emily seemed upset. Upset about what? Michael hesitated. She was having problems with her boyfriend, Homer Carter. She said he was getting too clingy. Clingy in what way? He was calling her all the time, following her. Emily was afraid he might get violent. Officer Sanchez looked up from her notebook. This changed the situation from an accident to a potential murder. At 9:45 a.m., Detective Sarah Thompson arrived at the scene. A 42-year-old woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had 15 years of experience in the homicide division. A divorced mother of 2 teenage children, she had dedicated her career to seeking justice for those who could no longer speak for themselves. Detective Thompson slowly walked around the crime scene, taking notes in a small notebook. Her experienced eye immediately spotted inconsistencies. Has the coroner examined the body yet? She asked the forensic technician. Yes, detective. The preliminary cause of death is head trauma, possibly from a fall down the stairs, but there are some oddities. Such as? Bruises on her wrists. And look at the position of the body. If she fell down the stairs, the body should be lying differently. Detective Thompson crouched down next to the body, studying the position. It looks like she was moved after she died, or pushed. That's exactly what we've concluded. Thompson walked over to the kitchen table, examining 2 coffee cups. Someone was here this morning. One cup is almost full, the other is empty. Check both for fingerprints. For the next 2 hours, the detective methodically searched the house. Everything looked normal in Emily's bedroom. The bed was made and her clothes were neatly hung in the closet. But in the bedside table, Thompson found a diary. The last entry was dated August 15th. Homer is becoming scary. This morning he said I belonged to him. There was something cold, inhuman in his eyes. I have to end this relationship, but I'm afraid of his reaction. Jess is right. He's not who he says he is. Tomorrow I'll talk to Dad and ask for his help. Thompson photographed the page and continued her search. In the kitchen trash can, she found a crumpled note with handwriting different from Emily's. We need to talk. I'll come over tomorrow morning. Homer. By noon, the detective was ready for a serious conversation with the victim's father. Michael Rogers sat in the station, holding a cold cup of coffee. His eyes were red from crying, his face gaunt. Mr. Rogers, I'm very sorry for your loss, Thompson began, sitting down across from him. I'm Detective Sarah Thompson. I'll be investigating your daughter's death. Was it an accident? Michael asked hoarsely. We don't know. Tell me about Homer Carter. Michael told her about his daughter's relationship with Homer, how it had developed, and Emily's growing concern in recent weeks. She was scared last night. She said he threatened her. Threatened her how? Not physically. Psychologically. He said she belonged to him. that he wouldn't let anyone ruin their relationship. Did Emily consider going to the police? We talked about it, but she was afraid it would only make him angrier. Detective Thompson wrote down Homer Carter's contact information and the address of his apartment. Mr. Rogers, is there anyone else Emily might have discussed her relationship with Mr. Carter with ? Jessica White, her best friend. They were very close. After talking to Michael, Thompson went to the Sacramento hospital where Jessica White worked. The nurse was on break when the detective found her in the hospital cafeteria. Jessica White? Detective Thompson, Sacramento Police Department. I need to talk to you about Emily Rogers. Jessica's face turned pale. Oh my God, did something happen to Emily? I'm afraid I have some bad news. Emily was found dead this morning in her home. Jessica grabbed the table to keep from falling. No, that can't be true. I'm so sorry. I know this is a shock, but I need your help. Tell me about Homer Carter. For the next half hour, Jessica recounted her suspicions about Homer, his obsessive behavior, the strange information about his work, how he had isolated Emily from her friends. Was Emily afraid of him? Thompson asked. In the last few weeks, yes. She said he was following her, showing up in unexpected places. She called me yesterday and said she was going to end the relationship. When was that? Around 10 o'clock at night. She was scared but determined. She said she couldn't live like that anymore. By the end of the day, Detective Thompson had a clear picture of the last few months of Emily Rogers' life. The young woman had gotten into a relationship with a man who exhibited classic signs of pathological jealousy and controlling behavior. Homer Carter became the prime suspect in her death. At 5:30 p.m., Thompson and two officers headed to Homer Carter's apartment, a modern residential complex on the northern outskirts of Sacramento. The concierge reported that Mr. Carter had left early that morning with a suitcase, saying he would be away for a few days due to family circumstances. What time did he leave? Around 7 a.m. He looked agitated and was in a hurry. The complex manager provided surveillance camera footage. The footage showed Homer Carter leaving the elevator at 6:52 a.m. with a small suitcase and a gym bag. His face was tense, his movements sharp. Put out an APB for Homer Carter, Thompson ordered Officer Clark. He's a murder suspect. The car is a gray Honda Accord, license plate number. She checked her notes. 7G4RT89. By evening, the crime scene investigators had completed their initial examination. Fingerprints that did not belong to Emily were found on one of the coffee cups. DNA from under the victim's fingernails was sent for analysis. Several hairs that did not match Emily's hair color were found on the living room floor. Detective Thompson sat in her office late into the night studying the case files. The picture was clear. Homer Carter had come to Emily's early that morning, possibly to discuss their relationship. The conversation turned heated. In a fit of rage or with cold calculation, he killed her, staged an accident, and then fled. But there wasn't enough evidence yet to get an arrest warrant. They needed to find Homer and get his statement. Thompson knew she had a maximum of 48 hours before the suspect disappeared for good. August 18th, 2024, 2:30 p.m., Sacramento Police Department. A breakthrough in the case came thanks to a routine database check. Forensic technician Robert Miller was processing fingerprints from the crime scene when the system flagged a match. Detective Thompson, you need to see this, he called across the office. Sarah walked over to his monitor. The screen displayed two sets of fingerprints, one from a coffee cup found at Emily's house, the other from the FBI database. Homer Carter isn't his real name, Miller said. His name is David Lee Morrison. He's 31 years old, originally from Arizona, convicted of domestic violence in 2019 in Phoenix. Thompson felt adrenaline rush through her veins. Show me the file. David Morrison's criminal history appeared on the screen. Arrested for assaulting his girlfriend Linda Vasquez in Phoenix. Charges of stalking and threats. Parole in 2020 with a restraining order against the victim. Where is Linda Vasquez now? Thompson asked. I'll try to find her. An hour later, Miller found her contact information. Linda Vasquez had moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, changed her last name to her maiden name, and was working as a high school teacher. Thompson dialed the number. The woman who answered spoke quietly, cautiously. Is this about David Morrison? Linda asked, hearing that the police were calling. Yes, He's suspected of murder here in California. There was a long pause. I'm not surprised. He threatened to kill me when I tried to leave him. For the next 20 minutes, Linda recounted a story that was painfully familiar to Detective Thompson, a charming man who gradually took control of every aspect of her life. Isolation from friends and family, physical and psychological abuse, death threats. After he was released, he disappeared. I thought I'd never see him again. How did you find him? He took a new name, Homer Carter. He moved to Sacramento. Oh my God, so he did it again? Thompson requested Morrison's complete case file from Phoenix. By evening, it was clear that they were dealing with a serial abuser who specifically targeted vulnerable women. August 19th morning. Detectives received new information from their colleagues in Denver. Homer Carter had indeed worked at an insurance company there until 2023, but had been fired for inappropriate behavior toward female colleagues and violation of corporate confidentiality policies. He had access to clients' personal files, Detective James Riley from Denver said over the phone. Especially single women. We suspected he was using company information for personal gain. Why wasn't a criminal case opened? Not enough evidence. But after he was fired, 2 female clients filed complaints of harassment. The picture was becoming clearer. David Morrison was a predator who systematically selected his victims and used various methods to gain control over them. At noon on August 19th, Thompson received a call from a patrol officer in a neighboring county. Detective, we found the car you're looking for. A gray Honda Accord parked at the Pine Grove Motel on Highway 50. Is the suspect there? We're checking. The manager says a man matching the description checked in for 2 nights. 40 minutes later, Thompson and the arrest team arrived at the motel. It was a cheap roadside establishment that didn't ask any questions for cash. The manager, a nervous man in his 50s, showed them the registration card. He gave his name as John Smith and paid in cash. Which room? Room 12, but he hasn't left since last night. Thompson signaled to the team. Officers surrounded the room on 2 sides. Police! David Morrison! Come out with your hands up! Silence, then the sound of footsteps inside the room. I said come out! Now! The door slowly opened. The man Emily knew as Homer Carter stood in the doorway, unshaven, in rumpled clothes, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Hands behind your head! Get on your knees! He complied without resistance. The officers handcuffed him and led him to a patrol car. At the station, Thompson left him in a cell for several hours to think about the situation. It was a classic tactic. Give the suspect time to get nervous. At 4 p.m., she began the interrogation. David Morrison sat at a metal table, studying his hands. Mr. Morrison, or do you prefer Homer Carter? He looked up. You know my real name. I know a lot. I know about Linda Vasquez in Phoenix, about your problems in Denver, and I know what you did to Emily Rogers. I didn't do anything to Emily. Your fingerprints are on a coffee cup in her house. Witnesses saw you following her. We have her diary, where she describes your threats. Morrison was silent for a long time. Then he spoke quietly. She wanted to leave me. And? I couldn't let that happen. Emily was special. She was pure, not like other women. Tell me what happened on the morning of August 16th. Another long pause. I came to talk to her, to explain that we were meant for each other. But she wouldn't listen. She was against me. That bitch Jessica. She said she didn't want to see me anymore. And then? I tried to stop her, just talk, but she tried to run away. Thompson felt the tension mounting. What happened next? She ran toward the stairs. I grabbed her arm. We struggled. She fell. Did she fall or did you push her? Morrison met her gaze for the first time during the entire interrogation. There was no remorse in his eyes. She shouldn't have tried to leave. Is that an admission of murder? It wasn't murder. It was an accident. An accident doesn't explain why you moved the body, why you staged a fall down the stairs. Morrison lowered his head again. I panicked. The interrogation continued for another 2 hours. Gradually, Thompson got the full picture of what had happened. Morrison had come to Emily's house early in the morning, insisting on talking to her. When she tried to send him away, he became aggressive. During the struggle, he pushed her, and she hit her head on the edge of the coffee table. Realizing that Emily was dead, he tried to stage an accident by moving her body to the stairs. On August 21, 2024, David Morrison was charged with second-degree murder. The prosecutor insisted on a first-degree murder charge, citing intent and planning. The trial began on October 15, 2024. The defense attorney attempted to prove that Emily's death was the result of an accident during a domestic dispute. The prosecution presented evidence of systematic abuse and threats. Linda Vasquez flew in from New Mexico to testify about the defendant's similar behavior. Jessica White spoke about Emily's growing fear. Michael Rogers gave emotional testimony about the last weeks of his daughter's life. On November 23, 2024, the jury returned a verdict of guilty of second-degree murder. Morrison was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. In her sentencing statement, Judge Margaret Harris said, "Mr. Morrison, you systematically preyed on vulnerable women using deception and manipulation. Your actions led to the tragic death of a young woman who had her whole life ahead of her." Morrison showed no emotion as the sentence was handed down. The Emily Rogers case was a turning point for the Sacramento Police Department in understanding domestic violence and stalking. Detective Thompson used the case file to train young investigators to recognize the signs of controlling behavior. Michael Rogers sold the house on Maple Street and moved closer to his sister in Oregon. He established the Emily Fund to support victims of domestic violence. Jessica White became a volunteer at a women's shelter, often telling her friend's story as a warning about how a charming stranger can turn out to be deadly. The Sacramento Library installed a memorial plaque in honor of Emily, where she had worked for 4 years. It reads, "In memory of Emily Rogers, she helped many find the answers they needed." Emily and Homer's story serves as a reminder that the greatest danger often comes from those we trust the most.